Hi, this is Nathan Oxenfeld with Integral Eyesight Improvement in the middle of March 2020. And we're here in the United States amidst the coronavirus pandemic. As is most of the rest of the world, it's a pretty interesting time right now on the planet. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about how this actually is connected with your vision and your eyesight and your Bates method practice. So I really think that, right now here in Asheville, North Carolina, I'm in a self-quarantine. So I'm pretty much staying in my house, not really leaving the house. And many other people are in this type of situation where your life has been kind of turned upside down in a certain sense, and there's a totally different way of living your life and filling your day. And I think that obviously once we get over the initial fear and panic and preparation and planning, things can kind of settle down a little bit and things kind of slow down. That's one of the effects that this has had on humanity, is it's kind of brought things to a halt in a sense and really slowed things down and maybe given people a different perspective on the really important things in life and what really matters and what's really important. And I want you to think about how you can utilize this time and not just be stuck in a state of fear, but actually go deeper into your own healing. And, think about it. If you're spending less time out and about, if you're driving your car less, if you're going to work less or school less, you still have a lot of stuff to do, but, maybe you can be devoting some of this potential extra time that you have to really refocusing in on some of your intentions around healing your eyes holistically using the Bates method and natural vision improvement. But maybe you felt like you didn't have enough time before, or maybe you felt too busy to really devote to this stuff. I really encourage you to use this time to learn about the Bates method, maybe even deeper than you had before. Pick up a book and read a book about it. Go watch through some of my archive of videos online, or listen to some of my podcasts about the Bates method. And that's one thing I want to mention today, is the synchronicity of the two most recent podcast episodes that I've put out. My personal podcast, the Naked Eye podcast, and the Better Eyesight podcast. I'll start with the Better Eyesight one because it's pretty crazy how it lines up, how 100 years ago in March 1920, Dr. William Bates actually put out an article. He published an article in Better Eyesight magazine called Influenza, a Quick Cure. And it's a short little article, as is most of the first introductory articles in Better Eyesight magazines. But as you hopefully know by now, I'm doing this Better Eyesight podcast project where my co-host Esther Vanderwerf and I and other vision teachers that we have on as guest readers, are going through the whole catalog of Dr. Bates's Better Eyesight magazines that he published from 1919 to 1930. So we started it last year in 2019, and we're going to 2030. And in March 1920, and the world was recovering from the Spanish flu pandemic. And so in March 1920, Dr. Bates put out this article called Influenza, a Quick Cure, and he's making the connection between using the Bates method and relaxation techniques found within it as a way to not just heal your eyes and to help your vision and your eyesight, but to actually help your entire body and your immune system. Because remember, the Bates method is all about achieving relaxation. And when you relax your eyes, according to Dr. Bates, you're not just relaxing your eyes, other muscles also relax. So it's like a systemic treatment. Using your eyes as the entry point, if you can relax your eyes and your mind, many, many other muscles and nerves and tendons in your body can also relax. And what's required in healing any kind of issue, whether it's a vision problem or a flu, is circulation and relaxation, and really allowing the body to heal itself and not being in a state of tension and strain and inflammation. So it's a really fascinating article, and if you want to listen to it, the guest from this month on March 2020 was Barry Ocketel, who's my colleague from Australia, who he and I are putting together this Vision 2020 documentary. And so he was in Asheville last month. Luckily, he got most of his traveling done before the shutdown happened. But he was here in Asheville, and we recorded that podcast episode together. So I'll include a link. You can listen to that. Not only hear us read the article, but in between the articles, we have discussions about it as well. And like I said, that was the 9th episode so far. We started it last July. So if you haven't had a chance to really catch up on these Better Eyesight podcasts, not only have they been really fun to make, but they have been very enlightening in terms of going to the original source of this material, Dr. Bates, and reading through his exact words exactly 100 years to the day or to the month. And really gleaning a lot more insights and information about the original method that he put forth 100 years ago. Now, that's the Better Eyesight podcast. My other podcast that I started before, back in 2015, the Naked Eye podcast, the most recent episode is called How Your Worldview and Your Self-Image Can Affect Your Eyesight. Now, I recorded that when I was down in Buenos Aires, Argentina last month, attending the Latin American Vision Conference. And also, I'm grateful that I was able to get that in. I got back to the country right before all these travel restrictions were coming down. So that was a really good experience. And that's going to be the topic of my next podcast, is actually doing a conference recap. Usually after I go to these conferences, I like to just give a little preview of who was there, what they were speaking about, some of these cool topics and exciting new things that are coming out. But while I was there, I had some extra time to do some work, and I recorded a podcast episode that was not only on my mind for a while, but it kept coming up. Other students and people kept bringing up in vision lessons or in classes, really this question about maybe worldview. I mean, maybe it's been coming up because there's just so much going on politically right now, and people's viewpoints and worldviews can actually shape our eyesight. And so I spent a little time just kind of talking about that and exploring that as a topic in general, before I had any idea that in just a few weeks' time, the entire human population would be kind of shifting their worldview quite rapidly. There's been a very, very fast transformation of people's perception of the world. All of a sudden, the world isn't a safe place to be in anymore. We can't go outside as much. We can't interact with each other as much. These new rules and stringent restrictions, it creates a different view of the world, not only locally in your city or your town or your state or your country, but globally. We're keeping track of what's going on in Europe and in Asia and Africa and all these different countries and continents. And this is actually potentially having an effect on our eyesight, right? And so all week, as I've been teaching lessons, in this quarantine mode, obviously I've moved everything online. I'm not having any students here in my office. That's really one of the benefits of being able to do this more online, is to do it at a distance and still be able to do the vision coaching. So I've still been meeting up with students all throughout the week from all around the world, and we've really been focusing on building up our own positivity and clarity and relaxation within, as we're being constantly exposed to some negativity and some fear and some panic from the outside, whether it's from the news or whether it's from actually going to the grocery store in your town and seeing some kind of panicked people, and it's sort of a hectic, stressful tension in the air. We're seeing a lot of that on the outside, so we need to think about what we're doing to counteract that or to counterbalance that on the inside. So this week, my students and I have been doing a lot of palming, so doing a lot of the palming practice and going within to access these visualizations that can be very uplifting and hope-inducing and really calming to the nervous system. Because a lot of people right now are on high alert, and we're kind of in a high-stress situation, as we should be. I mean, there's a reason for that, and we're not trying to ignore it or bury our head in the sand, but we are proactively taking some steps towards relaxing even during a pandemic. So this time, I think, is really valuable for you to be really prioritizing your own self-care and really not getting off track with your Bates method practice, because your Bates method practice can help you stay relaxed, and it can help you navigate through this period of 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks or however long this lasts. We need to stay focused, stay calm, stay relaxed, stay productive, and we have to exercise all of these habits and practices and techniques that we've been learning from the Bates method in real time, right? So it's like this is not a drill. This is the time to apply these techniques that you've been thinking about and learning about and reading about and listening about and watching about. Relaxation, breathing, blinking, shifting, central fixation, doing some swinging, getting outside, doing some sunning, as long as there's not a bunch of people around. And spending that time doing your palming and reading your eye charts, doing all of these good vision things as a way to keep you focused and not be totally thrown off track with everything that's going on right now. And if you have been thrown off track, don't beat yourself up about it. Just make sure that you notice, okay, this has really gotten me out of the loop. I'm out of my routine, out of my cycle, out of my schedule. But now, hopefully, if you're feeling like you're in a place where you can kind of calm down and settle down a little bit, you can pick it back up with even more vigor and even more energy and excitement and intention behind it. And I do just want to say that on a more personal note, I've been doing some reflection this week as well. And I was thinking back to when I first learned about the Bates method. And that was back in 2010. So it's been 10 years now since I first learned about the Bates method. And back in 2010, I was still in university. I was still in my senior year of college before I graduated. And at that time, I was studying a lot about self-sustainability, about alternative energy sources, about independent communities or intentional communities like eco-villages and these groups of people who were kind of living off the grid and trying some experimental more basic, voluntary simplicity kind of principles of living in community and living with the land and being very self-sufficient. And so when I was introduced to the Bates method originally, I was wearing contact lenses and I had glasses, and I realized that they were one of the links that I had to sort of the modern world and civilization, and that's fine and everything, but I knew that if I wanted to eventually get off the grid or live in a community or something like that, then maybe I would have to learn how to become more self-reliant and not be depending so much on institutions and on eye doctors and on pharmaceutical companies and on contact companies and glasses manufacturers. I wanted to learn how to use my own eyes without depending on anyone else. And so when I learned about the Bates method, that was the answer. That was the way to accomplish that. And so I was really excited to learn the Bates method, not just for the sake of improving my vision, which was the main driver, but in the back of my mind, I also had this idea that, you know what? Not only am I learning how to become more self-sufficient and independent, but if I do move into a community where there's farmers and people growing food and providing like really helpful services, I want to be able to offer something myself that can really benefit my community. And I want to be able to help people see more clearly. I want to help people feel better about their eyes and their eye health. Now, there was also an element of like, what if something went wrong? Every year or so, there's somebody that claims it's the end of the world and it's the apocalypse is coming and everything's going to shut down and the economy's going to collapse and we're going to go back to this tribal warfare kind of state. Well, in my mind, I was thinking, well, if something like that did happen, I would be kind of screwed, because what happens when I run out of my contact lenses? Or what happens if something happens to my glasses? And I was like, well, I better figure something else out. I mean, I want to be able to survive in an apocalyptic situation where maybe I can't depend on these things that I've been depending on for my whole life. And obviously I never wanted to see that come about. And honestly, this whole situation with the coronavirus and with the pandemic I mean, it's not that extreme as to my fears of the doom and gloom kind of like, apocalypse, but it's sort of a little taste of it in a sense. We're getting a little hint of what happens when things shut down. How long can we last without certain amenities or certain luxuries? And glasses and contacts are luxuries of the modern age, right? And so, we don't know how long this quarantine is going to last. Maybe your eye doctor's office is closed. They're not seeing patients right now. Maybe you had some eye surgery scheduled and all the surgeries are being canceled. So we're using the Bates method as a survival skill. I mean, we need our vision to function and to survive. It's a very base level thing. And so I want you to think about learning the Bates method as a way to improve your odds of survival in the case of a pandemic or in the case of an apocalyptic scenario. It's a way for you to see more clearly and navigate and function and in a new world and a new economy. We can talk about this stuff and hypothesize about it as much as we want, but then when an actual scenario like this happens, it's a much more tangible possibility that, wow, I might want to rethink some of these things that I've been kind of depending on, and maybe I can learn how to become more self-reliant. And if you use this quarantine time as that is your intention, like, okay, I'm going to utilize the fact that I don't need to drive, I don't need my glasses to drive, or I don't need my glasses to do X or Y or Z, I'm going to spend a lot more time without them, and I'm really going to focus in on how I can improve my eye health and improve my eyesight naturally with the Bates method. 10 years ago, I was learning about this stuff and thinking, oh, maybe this will be helpful one day in a scenario like it is right now. And so hopefully something like this doesn't happen again, but I mean, there's really no telling. And so I want you to feel prepared for the future and for your life. And it's really cool that you've been already looking into this stuff and really investigating, how to incorporate this stuff. And now you're given this opportunity, this window of time to maybe even go a little bit deeper into it or focus even a little bit more on it. If any of you have any suggestions or feedback or anything that you want to share about how you've been using this time or not using this time, maybe you've been having some challenges keeping up with some of your practices, or maybe you've actually found like you're doing better now with your practices than before this all started. I would definitely be curious to hear how you're coping with this and how you're going through it. And maybe you have some good suggestions as well of how to help other people who are, stuck inside of, oh, well, we can get creative and come up with this new way to play with the vision. That's really the cool thing about the Bates method is there's a lot of flexibility and adaptability and freedom for you to kind of customize it and make it your own type of experience. I just want to provide a little bit of relaxation and calm and peace within you to counteract a lot of this stress and fear that we're seeing in the world right now, as a way to practice having a more long-term vision as opposed to a short-term vision. Because when all this is happening, we're really having this very short-term acute vision of we need to figure out what's going on right now and the next week and the next day and the next hour. Things are moving very rapidly, so we're really focused in on this moment. And it's making it hard to kind of see beyond it, especially since we don't know when this is going to end. So the future is kind of fuzzy right now. But what I want you to practice is clarifying your future vision and think about seeing beyond this hurdle, this block, this challenge. And this is, sort of a way to practice, seeing beyond other challenges or hurdles or issues in your life, not just the coronavirus, but by practicing it with this situation, you'll be able to apply that in other situations, future hurdles, future things that kind of make you panic or bring up this type of fear response. Essentially, I want you to look at this, health crisis around the world right now and see if you can look for any positives, see if you can find any little silver linings. I was just looking at an article this morning from the Good News Network about how the pollution levels are cut in a massive way in China and starting to in the US with less airfare and all this stuff. So, obviously we don't want to downplay some of the negative sides of this and the pain and suffering and stress that this is really causing on a very big scale. But we have to find a balance between the negative and the positive, the yin and the yang, and really remember to be thinking about the future. And if right now the future seems fuzzy, see what you can do to maybe clarify it in certain ways. Maybe you're not sure how the rest of this year is going to play out, but maybe, you can think about what's going on next year or the year after that, or, just kind of treat this as a sort of a palming practice of going within and moving into the future and kind of coming up with what clears up for you there. And that may even help you in the present moment as well. Definitely want to thank you for being here today, and just stay tuned. Unfortunately, some events I had planned are being postponed, so just kind of keep checking back on my website for information about the 5-day vision retreat that was originally going to be at the end of May here in Asheville. I'm pushing that back to later in the year, still looking at some dates right now, so I'll be updating all that on my website and probably be sharing in more videos and podcasts and stuff like that. But I just really wish happiness and health and ease and relaxation to you and your family and your friends, and really want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and really maintaining this positivity and relaxation for the world as a whole. This isn't going to stop me from continuing to teach classes and work with people online and create more videos and podcasts and stuff. So keep staying tuned in and learning more about this stuff. And while you wait for new things to come out, like I said, you can go through the archive of older YouTube videos, podcast episodes, course videos, reread some books about this stuff. It's really your time to really shine and really focus in on your vision, because you can use this quarantine time. By the end of it, you could actually be seeing more clearly than before it. So some of these silver linings are up to you to find as well. So let me know if you have any questions about any of this stuff, and I'll definitely be happy to help.